The morning sky over Earth was clear, as it often was during early spring. People were going about their usual routines, unaware that everything was about to change. From a distance, beyond the boundaries of the known solar system, a fleet of alien warships appeared. At first, they were just a tiny speck in the night sky, but soon they grew larger and more menacing as they entered Earth's atmosphere. These were no ordinary ships. They were colossal, with sleek metallic exteriors that shimmered in the sun. Advanced technology far beyond anything humanity had ever seen. As the ships approached Earth, the first signs of trouble began. Communications around the world were disrupted. Satellites that provided weather updates and navigational systems suddenly went silent. Airplanes in the sky began to fall from the clouds, their systems failing one by one. Governments across the globe tried to make sense of what was happening, but it was too late. Earth was under attack. The first strike was a sudden, unprovoked bombardment. Massive beams of energy rained down from the alien ships, hitting cities around the world. New York, London, Beijing, all of humanity's most iconic landmarks were reduced to rubble in a matter of seconds. The ground trembled as if the Earth itself was trying to shake off the assault. Explosions ripped through the streets, sending shockwaves of terror through the population. The world's military forces scrambled to respond. Nations that had once been enemies now united in an attempt to defend the planet. Fighter jets took to the sky and rockets were fired at the invaders, but nothing worked. The alien ships absorbed the attacks with ease, their shields and technology far superior to anything humanity had developed. The military leaders were left helpless, unable to formulate a plan that could stop the incoming onslaught. Meanwhile, on the ground, chaos reigned. People ran for cover, desperate to escape the devastation. Cities crumbled, and communication between survivors was almost impossible. Governments declared martial law, but it was clear that order was no longer possible. It was every man and woman for themselves. As the first wave of attacks continued, the alien ships began to land in key locations. Soldiers in advanced armor and weapons disembarked, their forms towering over any human force that dared approach. They were a sight unlike anything seen on Earth, a perfect blend of technology and muscle, a race that had evolved far beyond humanity's wildest imaginations. In the streets of Washington, D.C., a group of survivors watched as an alien soldier approached. The massive creature, glowing with an unnatural light, marched through the ruins with purpose. It stopped in front of a building where a group of civilians were hiding. One of the soldiers raised his weapon, and without hesitation, the alien opened fire. The civilians were struck down in an instant, their screams echoing through the deserted streets. From across the world, similar scenes unfolded. In Tokyo, alien forces took control of the communication towers, leaving entire regions in darkness. In Paris, the Eiffel Tower collapsed as it was struck by one of the alien ship's energy beams. No place was safe. Humanity was defenseless against the overwhelming power of the invaders. Back in the command centers, world leaders faced a grim reality. Earth had never seen an enemy like this. The technology at the aliens' disposal was unlike anything humans had ever dreamed of. Their weapons could turn entire buildings to dust with a single shot, and their ships could easily outmaneuver Earth's best fighter jets. The humans had nothing left to fight with. The atmosphere around the globe shifted. People who had once thought of Earth as an invincible place now saw it as vulnerable. The humbling realization that humanity might be at the mercy of a force they couldn't even understand gripped the hearts of billions. Fear spread faster than the bombs that fell from the sky. It wasn't just the destruction that hurt, it was the realization that Earth was no longer in control of its own fate. It felt as if everything the human race had worked for, everything they had built, was being wiped out in a matter of hours. The pain of losing loved ones, the loss of their homes, and the feeling of helplessness hung over everyone like a dark cloud. As the alien invasion continued, hope seemed to evaporate. World leaders began preparing for the worst, knowing that Earth's best efforts to defend itself were nothing compared to the alien might. Desperation began to take root in the hearts of those who remained. The human race, once the dominant species on Earth, was now on the edge of annihilation. But even in the darkest moments, Humans still had something the invaders did not: resilience. It would take time, but some would refuse to give up. The fight for survival had only just begun, and so as Earth burned under the aliens' wrath, a quiet resolve began to grow among the survivors. They would not go quietly. They would fight until the last breath. But could they find a way to turn the tide? Before it was too late, the story was far from over. Humanity's last stand had only just begun. As Earth burned, humanity's survival instinct kicked in. Across the globe, governments had crumbled, but in their place, small pockets of resistance began to form. People who had once lived in bustling cities now hid in the shadows, trying to survive day by day. Some had lost everything, but none had lost their will to fight. A few knew that Earth was not completely defeated yet, and that thought gave them the strength to move forward. In a hidden underground military base somewhere in the Swiss Alps, a group of military leaders and scientists gathered. Among them was General Alex Carter, a seasoned war veteran who had seen it all but had never faced an enemy like this. His hands trembled as he studied the data on the holographic display in front of him. The aliens had completely wiped out Earth's most powerful weapons in a matter of hours, and humanity's ability to fight back was almost non-existent. But Carter wasn't one to back down. If there was any chance of survival, he was going to find it. "We can't keep running and hiding," Carter said, his voice steady but filled with frustration. "We need to fight. We need to stand up." Dr. Amelia Brooks, a brilliant scientist and expert in alien technology, nodded in agreement. She had spent years studying Earth's enemies, but what she saw now on her monitors was beyond anything she had imagined. The aliens' technology was centuries ahead of anything humanity could produce. They had mastered energy weapons, force fields, and even warp drive technology. But there was something about them, something that didn't quite sit right with Amelia. "We have to use our own strength," she said, her eyes sharp with determination. "Humans have always fought back against the odds. We may not have the advanced technology, but we have ingenuity. We have the ability to adapt." It was these words that sparked something in Carter. Despite the overwhelming odds, the human spirit could not be broken so easily. He understood what Amelia meant. In the face of impossible challenges, humans had always found a way to overcome, and that was the key to their survival. The small group of survivors, including military strategists and engineers, began working tirelessly to find a way to turn the tide. Amelia led the charge in studying alien technology. For hours, she pored over the data, trying to find weaknesses in their shields, weapons, and ships. Every small breakthrough, no matter how insignificant it seemed, was another step forward. Meanwhile, across the ocean, in a small resistance cell in the heart of what remained of New York, survivors began to organize. A former soldier, Mark Thompson, led a team of civilians who had refused to give up. They were all ordinary people who had witnessed their cities fall apart, but now they were standing together, determined to fight back. "We're not going to let our homes be destroyed," Mark declared to his team. "We have one chance, and we're going to take it." The small group of civilians worked together, scavenging whatever they could from the ruins of the city. They found old weapons, makeshift explosives, and gathered intelligence about the alien forces. Though their resources were limited, their determination was unmatched. Back in the Swiss Alps, the team of military leaders and scientists had a breakthrough. Dr. Brooks, after days of study, uncovered a potential vulnerability in the alien ships. The aliens' shields were nearly impenetrable, but they relied heavily on their energy sources to maintain their technology. If they could disrupt their energy flow, they might be able to weaken the aliens' defenses. "It's risky," Dr. Brooks said, her voice tense. "But it's the best chance we've got." Carter nodded grimly. He knew the risks involved. To strike at the heart of the alien technology would mean sending a team into the most dangerous parts of the enemy's fleet, but it was their only shot at victory. The small resistance groups from all over the world would have to come together to make this plan work. As the days passed, a fragile hope began to take root. Survivors continued to band together, sharing resources, knowledge, and strategies. They knew they were fighting against an enemy far stronger than themselves, but they also knew that their unity could be the key to survival. Humanity had always survived in the face of adversity, and now, the fate of the world rested in the hands of those who were willing to stand together. In the midst of all the chaos, there were whispers of something else, something far more ancient and mysterious. Rumors spread that in the depths of Earth's history, there was a powerful force hidden beneath the planet's surface. An artifact, some believed, capable of turning the tide against the alien invaders. But no one knew where it was or what it could do. But for now, the focus was on disrupting the alien energy grid. As Carter and his team worked on their plan, Mark Thompson's resistance group in New York launched their first mission to scout the alien strongholds. It was a dangerous job, but they managed to infiltrate a small alien base. What they discovered shocked them. The aliens weren't just here to invade, they had a larger, more sinister plan. The alien forces were preparing to send reinforcements. The destruction of Earth was only the beginning. The survival of the human race depended not just on fighting back, but on figuring out why the aliens had come in the first place. But for now, all they could do was focus on survival. The battle was far from over. The human race was on the brink, but they were not out of the fight. Humanity's resilience had just begun to shine through. As the resistance forces gathered their strength, they knew one thing for certain: Earth would not fall without a fight. The world had been forever changed. Cities lay in ruins. The air was thick with dust and smoke, and the constant threat of alien attack loomed over every corner of the planet. Yet, as the days turned into weeks, a spark of hope began to flicker in the hearts of those who refused to give up. Humanity was not finished. Not yet. In the Swiss Alps, General Alex Carter stood in front of a massive holographic display, his eyes focused on the data scrolling before him. The plan was risky, but it was the only way forward. The alien shields, nearly invincible to Earth's weapons, had one major flaw. They required a continuous flow of energy to remain operational. If humanity could disrupt that energy, the shields would collapse, leaving the alien ships vulnerable to attack. It wasn't much, but it was a start. "We can do this," Carter muttered to himself, more as a reminder than a statement of confidence. The military and civilian resistance groups had worked day and night, putting everything they had into preparing for this moment. The first strike would come soon, and it had to count. Across the world, resistance forces were getting ready. In New York, Mark Thompson's group had managed to infiltrate an alien base, uncovering crucial intelligence. They had learned that the aliens were preparing for something even worse than an invasion. Earth was just the first target. There were more worlds in their sights. But for now, Mark and his team focused on one objective: strike at the heart of the alien fleet. Mark and his group stood at the edge of a dilapidated building, watching the alien forces from a distance. The streets below were eerily quiet, save for the occasional hum of alien patrols passing by. The group had gathered what little they could: some basic weaponry, a few explosives, and an old stolen map of the alien command center. Their mission was simple: disrupt the energy grid powering the alien shields. "We need to be quick and quiet," Mark whispered to his team, his eyes scanning the streets. "One wrong move, and we're all dead." The team nodded, each person understanding the weight of their mission. They had no time to waste. The fate of the human race rested on their shoulders. They moved swiftly through the darkened streets, staying low and out of sight. Alien drones patrolled the area, their glowing eyes scanning for any signs of movement. But the humans were too clever for them. They used the ruined buildings as cover, avoiding detection at all costs. They finally reached the outskirts of the alien base where the energy core was located. Carter's team in the Swiss Alps had given them the coordinates, but the path to the core was heavily guarded. The resistance had to find a way inside without alerting the aliens. A few well-placed explosives would be enough to breach the outer defenses, but the core itself was a different story. Inside, the energy grid pulsed with the power of thousands of alien ships, fueling their weapons and shields. If they could sabotage the core, it would bring down the entire fleet. Mark's heart raced as they reached the entrance. It was guarded, by two heavily armed alien soldiers standing at attention beside a locked door. There was no way around them. Mark looked at his team, silently giving the signal to prepare. Then, with a sharp move, Mark threw a small grenade toward the soldiers. It exploded in a burst of light, momentarily blinding them. In that brief moment, the resistance team rushed forward, knocking the aliens unconscious before they could react. The door to the energy core was now open. Inside the base, the team moved quickly, planting explosives along the walls, careful to avoid triggering any alarms. The core was ahead, a massive glowing orb that hummed with energy. The power it radiated was overwhelming, and Mark knew that one wrong move could mean the end of their mission and their lives. He signaled to one of his team members, Sarah, who was the explosives expert. "Get to the core. We need to plant the buoy. Charges." Sarah nodded and moved quickly toward the energy source. Her hands shook as she worked, but she was determined. This was their only chance. The future of Earth depended on them taking this risk. As Sarah planted the final charge, Mark turned to check the entrance. Alien soldiers had heard the explosion and were beginning to rush toward them. There was no time left. "Time to go," Mark shouted, his voice rising with urgency. They had to get out before the charges detonated. The team quickly moved toward the exit, but as they reached the door, a loud roar echoed through the base. The aliens had arrived in force. A battle ensued. Mark and his team fought back fiercely, using every weapon at their disposal. Alien soldiers charged at them, firing energy blasts that tore through the walls. The team fought with everything they had, but it was clear that they were outmatched. However, they had no choice but to hold their ground. "Charge in 5, Sarah yelled, her voice trembling as she finished the countdown. "Get ready to run." Mark glanced at the explosive timer. It was counting down, and they had to be clear of the blast zone. The team made a mad dash for the exit, but just as they reached the door, the ground shook beneath them. The explosion was massive. Outside the base, the team heard the deafening roar of the blast. The energy core had exploded, and with it, the alien shields began to collapse. The alien ships, once invulnerable, were now exposed. Humanity had struck a crucial blow. The team gathered their breaths, knowing that their mission had succeeded, but it wasn't over yet. The battle for Earth had only just begun. This is part 3 of the story, written in third-person style with simple English. It follows the resistance team as they execute their dangerous mission to disrupt the alien energy grid. The tension builds as they struggle to complete their task and make their escape. But their success marks a turning point in the war. The explosion from the alien base echoed across the war-torn Earth. Mark Thompson and his team, still recovering from their narrow escape, could hear the rumble in the distance. It was the sound of something big, something powerful. The shield around the alien fleet had finally fallen. Did it work? Sarah asked breathlessly, her hands still shaking from the fight. Mark wiped sweat from his brow and nodded. It worked. The aliens' shields are down. It's time to move. Across the globe, the news spread like wildfire. The aliens' once impenetrable defenses were finally vulnerable. Resistance groups, military units, and civilians all rallied together, ready for the final push. Earth's forces, though battered, were not about to give up. The fight had just begun. General Alex Carter stood in front of a large map, his face grim but resolute. The loss of countless cities and lives had weighed heavily on him, but he knew this moment was humanity's chance to strike back. The alien forces had spread themselves thin across Earth, but their fleet still loomed in the skies, ready to unleash destruction. "We're not going to wait for them to regroup," Carter said, his voice firm. "We'll strike first, hit them hard, and we'll show them what humanity is capable of." His team of military leaders who had spent weeks preparing for this moment stood at attention. They had no more time for hesitation. This was their final shot. If they failed, Earth would fall, and humanity's legacy would be nothing but a faint memory. The plan was simple. Humanity's remaining forces would converge on the alien fleet in a coordinated assault. Every military asset still standing would take part in the attack. Fighter jets would fly into the heart of the alien armada, aiming for the now vulnerable ships. Ground forces would push through alien-controlled cities. reclaiming territory, and forcing the invaders back. But it wasn't just about technology. This fight was about something more. It was about survival. It was about proving that humanity, despite being on the brink of destruction, could rise above any challenge. At sunrise, the first wave of human fighters took off from secret military bases around the world. These planes, once grounded by the alien technology that had crippled Earth's Air Force, were now free to soar. Their weapons, powered by the last remnants of Earth's energy, were aimed directly at the alien ships in the sky. Fighter jets weaved through the air, dodging alien fire as they closed in on their targets. "Lock onto their engines," one of the pilots shouted over the comms. "Take them out before they can retaliate." Laser blasts and missiles lit up the sky as Earth's forces engaged the alien fleet. It was a chaotic battle, with humans and aliens fighting in a frenzy. The alien ships were still formidable, but they were no longer invincible. Every shot from the human fighters had a chance of hitting. Every explosion brought humanity closer to victory. On the ground, the battle was just as fierce. Resistance groups had banded together to form a unified army, launching attacks on alien strongholds. Mark Thompson's team, now joined by countless others, fought their way through the ruins of once great cities. The streets were littered with debris, and the air was thick with smoke, but humanity pressed on. "Push forward," Mark yelled, rallying his troops as they advanced through a devastated neighborhood in what was once Los Angeles. "We take back our world, one block at a time." Civilians, once hiding in fear, now fought alongside soldiers. People from all walks of life had come together in this desperate time, understanding that their survival depended on unity. They fought with everything they had, every last ounce of energy. The alien forces were strong, but they were no match for the determination of the human spirit. Meanwhile, in the heart of the alien fleet, the remaining alien commanders prepared for their final assault on Earth. They had underestimated humanity from the start, assuming that Earth's defenses were nothing more than primitive technology. But now they realized that they had made a terrible mistake. The human race was far more resilient than they had ever imagined. "We cannot let them win," one of the alien commanders hissed, his voice cold with anger. "Prepare the secondary fleet. We'll show them what true power looks like." But even as they made their preparations, they knew that the tide of battle had shifted. The aliens had come to conquer, to dominate. They had not expected a fight like this. They had not expected humanity to rise from the ashes. As the sun set, the final phase of the battle began. Carter's forces had successfully infiltrated the alien command center, and with the help of underground resistance fighters, they were now within range of the aliens' main weapon systems. The plan was simple: destroy the heart of the alien fleet and cripple their remaining forces. The assault was fast and fierce. Soldiers stormed the command center, engaging in close quarters combat with the alien warriors. Explosions ripped through the air, shaking the ground beneath their feet. But Carter's forces pressed on, determined to end this war once and for all. At the same time, Mark's team and the other resistance groups pushed forward, taking out alien bases and freeing human prisoners wherever they could. With every victory, the morale of Earth's fighters grew. They had faced death, and yet they had not faltered. As the final blows were struck, the alien fleet began to crumble. Their ships fell from the sky, crashing to the ground in flames. Alien soldiers, once proud and unstoppable, were now fleeing, retreating from the planet they had tried to conquer. And then, in the quiet that followed the chaos, the message was clear. Earth had fought back, Earth had won. Humanity had not been wiped out. The alien invaders had been stopped in their tracks, and Earth remained free. But victory came at a price. The battle had destroyed cities, taken lives, and changed the world forever. The planet was left scarred, but the human race stood stronger than ever. They had faced the impossible, and they had overcome it. The war was over, but the work to rebuild had only just begun. The silence that followed the final explosion was deafening. The last alien ship, its massive form crashing into the ocean, sent a wave of energy that shook the ground beneath the feet of Earth's survivors. The battle was over. The war had been won. Humanity had stood tall against the invaders, defying all odds and proving that even in the face of overwhelming destruction, the human spirit could not be broken. But as the dust settled, it became clear that the victory came with a heavy price. Across the globe, the cities that had once been teeming with life were now nothing more than rubble. The land was scarred by the blasts, the air still thick with smoke. There was no denying that the world had been changed forever. But Earth had survived, and that was all that mattered. General Alex Carter stood on the balcony of the command center, overlooking the ruins of what had once been the capital city. His face was grim, his eyes staring at the horizon where the last remnants of the alien fleet smoldered in the distance. The victory was hard-earned, but it had come at the cost of so much. So many lives lost, cities destroyed, and an entire way of life shattered. "We did it," said Dr. Amelia Brooks, standing beside him. Her voice, though filled with relief, carried the weight of everything they had lost. But at what cost? Carter sighed deeply, his gaze never leaving the horizon. "We lost more than I could have ever imagined, but we won. And that's what matters right now." Amelia nodded, but her thoughts were heavy. She had worked tirelessly, sacrificing everything to help defeat the alien invaders. But even now, as the war came to an end, she knew the work to rebuild was just beginning. Earth had been left in ruins, and it would take more than military strength to bring it back. It would take unity, hope, and time. Back in the streets, survivors gathered together, some weeping for the lives lost, others offering quiet prayers for the fallen. But amidst the mourning, there was something else, a sense of determination. Humanity had faced the ultimate test, and they had passed it. Now it was time to rebuild. Mark Thompson, still with his resistance team, walked through the streets of what was once New York City. The air smelled of smoke and ash, but there was a sense of relief in the air too. The enemy was gone. The city was theirs again. But the work ahead would be monumental. "We've won, but the real challenge begins now," Mark said, his voice tired, but hopeful. "We rebuild our cities, our homes, our world. We've lost a lot, but we still have each other." One of his team members, Sarah, gave him a tired smile. "We'll do it. We have to. For everyone we lost." They were right. The survivors knew that the fight had only just begun. There was still so much to do. Cities had to be rebuilt. People had to be cared for. And most of all, the human race needed to heal. In the days that followed the victory, leaders from all over the world gathered to discuss the next steps. General Carter addressed the global assembly, his voice filled with conviction. "We've faced the impossible, and we've come through the other side," he said, standing before the leaders of every nation. "Now we face the future together. Our enemy is gone, but the road ahead will be long. We must rebuild not just our cities, but our hearts, our spirits, and our unity." The applause that followed was not just for the victory, but for the shared understanding that humanity had something no alien force could ever take: resilience. Earth's people had been tested, but they had come together in the face of disaster. They had fought back, and they had won. Meanwhile, across the world, the rebuilding effort began. Cities that had been reduced to rubble were slowly brought back to life. New structures rose from the ashes, and human ingenuity once again proved to be the driving force behind Earth's recovery. Engineers, architects, and scientists worked tirelessly to restore what had been lost, and though the scars of war would remain, they were determined to heal the planet. At the same time, humanity's place in the universe was forever altered. The war had taught them that they were not invincible, but they had learned to never underestimate their own strength. Earth had defeated the invaders, but it had also gained something far more valuable: unity. The nations of the world had put aside their differences, working together as one. And now they had a new purpose: to protect their home and ensure that nothing like this ever happened again. General Carter and Dr. Brooks stood together at the edge of the new command center, watching as the first human space fleet was being assembled. It was a symbol of Earth's resolve. The invaders may have underestimated humanity, but now the entire galaxy would know better. "We're ready," Carter said, his voice steady and filled with purpose. "We'll explore the stars, protect our world, and make sure Earth's story is never forgotten." Dr. Brooks smiled, a sense of pride swelling in her chest. "We may have started this war as victims, but we're ending it as survivors, and the galaxy better watch out." As the sun set on the horizon, casting a golden glow over the Earth, the survivors knew one thing. They had earned their place in the universe. They had fought for their survival, and now they would stand tall. The war was over. Earth had won. But the journey had just begun.